Today we'll be discussing the fifth installment of Capcom's Devil May Cry series, which is known, not confusingly at all, as DMC Devil May Cry. Released in January of 2013, this game is a prequel to the previous four in the series and serves as the origin story for Dante, our anti-hero protagonist. The game is set in a fictional yet realistic city, and the antagonists are demons as a whole, but specifically the king of the demons, Mundus. We'll start out by discussing the way the game critiques society in and of itself, and then move on to the latent themes present within the game's story and characters. I would be remiss to not start by saying DMC attempts to function as social commentary or critique within the context of its own story. The two main ways demons control humans is through an energy drink called Virility and a media corporation called the Raptor News Network, thus providing the opportunity for some pointed, yet brutally obvious, commentary on consumerism, government food regulations, and media bias. In the human world, virility ads show fit men alongside words like sexier and smarter. In the demon world, the fit models become obese, and the positive descriptors become words like obesity and stupidity. Dante later discovers the drink's secret ingredient is a poisonous vomit produced by a demon called the succubus. In regards to the media, Raptor News Network is owned by the main antagonist, Mundus, and the only broadcaster who appears is a demon himself. In both of these, the message has neither subtlety nor depth. Corporations control everything and want to keep consumers addicted and uninformed in order to maintain their wealth and power. This critique of corporate America is so familiar that, regardless of the validity of the point, it's rather uninspiring. One of the more interesting comments this game makes is in regards to traditional morality. Morality is presented as the antithesis of self-awareness, and self-awareness and a critical view of society are presented as the only values worth cultivating. Dante is a binge-drinking, foul-mouthed, promiscuous social deviant, and it is he who can see the world for what it is. The demons, somewhat counterintuitively, criticize Dante for his lack of morality, particularly his sexual activity. Thus we are presented with the suggestion that it is the demons who control social rules and norms, including traditional morality, and the only absolute good is an awareness and critical view of these norms. In regards to mise-en-scène, setting is fairly significant in this game. Dante is continuously pulled back and forth between Limbo City, the fictional yet realistic and modern human dwelling, and Limbo, a parallel demon plane. While the idea of a demonic parallel plane is obviously a fantasy element, Limbo City is much more grounded in realism than past Devil May Cry settings. There are no castles, jungles, or ruins on uninhabitable snowy peaks. The architecture is all fairly familiar, as is the style of dress. People live in houses and work in tall buildings and drive normal cars on normal roads, and Dante has swapped in his white hair, bright red trench coat, and leather chaps for short, dark hair, jeans, and a grungy tank top. This familiarity further reinforces the idea that this is our time, these are our problems. The game might actually have been more interesting in a different historical context, but the utter absence of tact in which issues like consumerism and media bias were handled suggests the game makers thought their audience wouldn't get the message unless it hit them right between the eyes. It would be unfair to say DMC does not treat its female characters any differently than other games, because the women in DMC seem to have realistic anatomical proportions and, with the exception of the exotic dancers, they all wear real clothes. However, the main female character, Cat, fits so comfortably into the role of damsel in distress that it's obvious the game's defiance of social norms doesn't extend as far as its characters. Cat is the only main character who is human, and her entire purpose is to give Dante the opportunity to prove he's a nice guy, on the inside. Her role as a guide is such a thin veil for her professional helplessness that it might as well not be there at all. Dante protects her physically and speaks up on her behalf, while she paints occult symbols on walls and makes cryptic comments about having nightmares. When she opens up to Dante and tells him her demonic foster father attacked her most nights, it's done for the sole purpose of eliciting a reaction from him rather than providing depth or growth for her. Basically, it's a retroactive rape scene, and rape has become a trope in pop culture. It's treated as a plot point, an event to motivate the hero, while the woman is just a pawn. That being said, Kat is not overtly sexualized, but her body is presented in a voyeuristic fashion, which still makes her an object rather than an agent. Although her outfit is conservative by video game standards, viewers are given glimpses of cleavage when she bends over, and of her minuscule shorts when she ducks through doors. She is, in some ways, the classic feminine ideal, sexy but completely unaware of her sex appeal. Dante, on the other hand, is very aware of his sex appeal and makes sure everyone else is aware of it too. As you might have noticed when we were talking about traditional morality, the entire opening sequence consists of him picking up 2 strippers from a club. And when Kat knocks on the door the next morning, he answers it completely naked without so much as a hand over his business. He continually makes sexual jokes and quips in front of Kat, which are always met with downcast eyes and embarrassed silence. Neither of them depart from standard gender roles or challenge the character tropes of anti-hero and damsel in distress. To conclude, I should say that none of this critique should be interpreted as dislike of the game. DMC Devil May Cry is a fun hack and slash with beautiful art and entertaining dialogue. However, as a game that bombards its audience with the notion of disregarding societal boundaries, it ultimately fails to deviate from the typical trajectory and falls short of originality.